Hello and welcome here to the Husker Online show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. We're making sure Robin stays in town before we send him off to Chicago for Big Ten basketball. But gentlemen, this is kind of the calm before the storm. We got NCAA March Madness starting up next week. But we got Matt Rhule. We got a couple players this week. Spring practice will begin March 20th. This is the final week of winter conditioning. Then everybody's off for a week for spring break, and then they'll come back and begin spring ball. Lots to dive into with Matt Rhule and that press conference. Sip, I just thought, once again, obviously he just knows how to carry himself, cover a lot of ground, says a lot, but doesn't say too much. I mean, he's just a real pro in these types of situations.
He really is. And the reason they had it, I don't know. I never did see the release of the press conference of what the deal was, but I think they kind of dubbed it a post-winter post-winter conditioning press conference. So he kind of wrapped that up, talked about the competitions they had. They split teams up into 12-player groups. That's why they had people wonder why they have Thomas Fedoni and Chief Borders. They did very well on their teams. Well, Fedoni was the captain of his.
He was the captain of the best team.
Yeah.
Led by Garrett McGuire.
And Borders was on that team, and he tied Teddy Prohaska for the highest individual point total.
There you go. So that's why they had it. Yeah, I really appreciated it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's content. You gotta meet Chief Borders, which was nice.
And now you can see.
Hell, you got to meet Thomas Fedoni.
Yeah. His first formal interview as a Husker, right?
And they're both those guys were really good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're both insightful, look comfortable. Kids are amazing to me in some ways. And you're right, Sean. Rhule is a gem. I mean, for us, right now, we'll see what it looks like after he loses. I always have to throw in that caveat. But yeah, he's once again Nebraska very strong in the off season.
We got all the t-shirts, all the banners.
Yeah. Once again, winning the off season very well.
Well, Chief Borders, and we're going to talk more about the players, but you heard a lot about him being kind of a leader behind the scenes, and you could see that just how his demeanor, how he was.
Yeah.
I mean, you're like, God, this guy really
You immediately feel better when he walks into the room, like that smile and just how like happy he was. Like he genuinely like was excited to be there, and like that's refreshing in a lot of ways, with especially some of those November interviews where guys are just worn down. The last thing they want to do is talk. Yeah. Chief Borders was loving every minute of that.
He was. You're right. Now that you mention it, it kind of did feel that way when he walked in. It did feel better. He's very, he said that about himself, that he likes to smile. He's very easygoing. And you know what? I'd heard he had a big personality when he came here. Someone told me that right away. Chief Borders and MJ Sherman. They both have big personalities. And he definitely saw it. And Fedoni's got a good personality. I don't know what the hell we're talking about personalities for, but how
about winning football?
Yeah, but they got nice personalities.
That's all we got right now.
Yeah.
All right, you're listening here to the Husker Online show. Let's delve into Matt Rhule and more of what he said. I'm really fascinated just how he's trying to kind of build his version of Nebraska. And, it's different leadership events. It's being present at things. I mean, you heard him talk about he's seen Husker athletes at volleyball and beach volleyball and swimming and gymnastics and basketball, men's and women's games. I mean, it's almost like a high school. Like, I
didn't do that when I was in high school.
You're at Lincoln High, or I'm at Omaha Groves. You're like, we're going to go watch the girls' soccer game. I didn't do that. But now you might have went to the girls' soccer game in high school for other reasons.
Oh, boy.
Well, Sean, easy. But he's really pushing that. I mean, he's espousing that sort of
one Nebraska,
unifying, and it makes some sense. Again, I don't know what it equates to exactly. It's hard to quantify any of that, but
investment.
Yeah, it's investment.
It's showing investment to the brand.
Exactly. Where you're about the university. You're not just a football player here for a few months.
Mm-hmm.
You're an established member of the university athletic department, the community.
Isn't that a novel concept?
Yeah, I know. And so like this off-season competition thing, like what I thought was one of the most interesting parts was it's not just what you do in the weight room or what you do in the mat drills or the winter conditioning or whatever it is. It's like how many community service acts are you going to go do? Are you showing up to class on time? Are you going to study hall on time?
Right.
Are you spending time with players, your teammates at events, going to support other Nebraska athletics? And I think that's sort of stuff. I don't know. It's something that I don't think has been emphasized nearly enough. And, maybe it's just my perspective of it, but like how much this staff is emphasizing and pushing guys to get out of their comfort zones and not just hang out with their position group.
Mm-hmm.
Where you do with these teams, you select a team, you need a big guy, you need a fast guy, you need a smart guy, you need all these things.
Guy.
Yeah. You punctual guys. And so like, you're not just hanging out with a bunch of receivers. You're not hanging out with a bunch of guys from Florida.
Right.
You're going out and you're picking a whole diverse group of 12 players that maybe otherwise wouldn't be hanging out at this point in the calendar. So there's, I think, so much value with what they're doing that goes well beyond football.
Yeah, and I don't want to play it down in part because I'm looking at you right now. I'm looking at you cover a team that I remember you writing it in the summer about how Fred was doing team building type things. And I sort of rolled my eyes. But now, lo and behold, look at them. I mean, part of the reason Nebraska won 6 of its last 8 games and is able to close out pretty difficult wins, like the win on the road against Iowa, the win on the road against Rutgers. And I've read it. I've read what you've written. We always wonder that we always have that conversation around here about how do you win close games? Well, part of it's chemistry. It's not all of it, but part of it is just cohesion and banding together at those critical moments late. So maybe Rhule looked at it and said, hey, they're 4-8, close games. We've had that conversation here, but he did allude to it the other day. This team's not that bad. They've been close. And now maybe it's precision and chemistry that gets them over the top.
Well, guys, I'm going to throw a number at you, 39.
39.
The number of new players added to the roster. You've got to get those guys kind of indoctrinated. Guys like Trey Palmer and O'Shawn, they were great stories last year. But, I mean, they were almost like paid mercenaries. I mean, they came in, they gave Nebraska their 1 year, they're going to go to the NFL. And that's good. That's what the transfer portal is going to do for a lot of teams in college football. But I think to take that next step, you need more than that. You need a foundation, a program. And the Frost era, they got in such a hole with some of their early roster moves that they just never got caught up. And
that's for sure.
And Rhule has to obviously build what he's building and then, get it stable and caught up. Right. Where Frost, the first couple of years, everything just went wrong, and then the players they took, it just didn't, none of it worked out.
COVID didn't help, but
I mean, I don't want to make even the ones that you thought should work out leave, like Wandale Robinson. So
a lot,
it just, I think for Rhule, he's got to build his version of Nebraska, and it's getting that foundation and structure done. And these first 3 months have been huge. 101 days when we talked to Rhule, by the way. Yeah,
they added 39, as you mentioned, 11 from the transfer portal, and that will be a high number. He has said that, right?
Yeah, Ed Foley said that at St. Michael's too. He said that we won't have this many ever again. From the number of total recruits and the portal. Like, that's not a number we really want to go for much more. I mean, you can't. I mean, you cannot live on that many guys per year.
The portal is never going away, but I think the ultimate goal is to have a foundation where you supplement through the portal. You're not building your team year in, year out through the portal. You're getting a Trey Palmer to add to what is already a strong, cohesive culture where you have established veterans that know the program and are natural leaders.
Drug, though, the portal.
It is. But if you lean too heavily on it, I mean, it can backfire on you.
And like an addictive drug, you get the highs and the lows of it.
Absolutely.
And there's great days of the portal. Then there's days like, man, like we don't have much structure to our locker room because all these guys are brand new.
Well, we've learned quickly that if for instance, if you need a tackle and you're saying you badly need a tackle and you're just relying on the portal, good luck. If you need a big time talented wide out, everybody does. So good luck. I mean, now NIL helps having an
they had a tackle for 3 days.
Was it 3?
Walter Rouse, Wednesday to Saturday.
And was it Wednesday night?
I was standing in the line at Runza, and Abby's like, guys, Walter Rouse decommitted. And I'm like, what?
So we've talked about that. I was in my kitchen, and it was a surreal moment. Like, it wasn't happening. I was like, no.
It can't. I mean, the guy did like 17 interviews about going to Nebraska.
I was writing the story for us, and all the while I was thinking, is this really going to get published here? I mean, it was odd, very odd. But anyway, yeah, you guys got it. And listen, I don't like to do this every year where we say, yeah, it's going so well in the offseason. But I like what Rhule's doing. I mean, it does look good.
It's all you can base it off of.
Right.
And so far, there's very little to complain about with
nothing to
what they've done with their roster additions.
Oh, one complaint. There's one.
What's that?
Haven't added enough big men.
Well, yeah.
They have.
On the front, defensive front.
But that's still incomplete. I mean, they still have time.
They need to.
But his hands are around Nebraska football at this stage, much more than we saw from Scott Frost at the same stage, and much more than we ever saw from Mike Riley.
Or Bo Pelini.
I mean, it reminds you more of Callahan. I mean, Callahan definitely had his hands on the day-to-day. It was a different era, though.
But he wasn't as public.
No.
Not even close.
No. I mean,
now, I'm a huge fan of Bill Callahan, so that's not a complaint about him. Some guys are just different than others. I mean, if I were a head coach, I wouldn't be public. I mean, it's not my personality, nor was it Bill's. But I kind of like this look. Matt seems to like it here. Again, it's all it's no games. So you just want to see what it looks like after that. But yeah, I'm with you guys. I really like the way it looks. And I love the CEO part.
Yeah,
love the
CEO.
CEO.
There's something to be said for unifying the fan base, too.
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk more players, Casey Thompson's status. We'll also hit on the NFL Combine. Nebraska had 3 players there. We'll share our thoughts on that and then get you ready for the Pro Day coming up later in March. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, as we give some more final thoughts on the opening spring practice, kind of the pre-press conference. As we heard from Matt Rhule this week, Thomas Fedoni, Chief Borders. Lots to unpack from Matt Rhule. Let's start with Casey Thompson. I asked Coach Rhule kind of his update, his outlook for the spring, because, Casey, at least publicly, when he spoke with me at St. Michael's, said by the end of March, he'll be fully kind of cleared. But what does that mean? How much will he be allowed to do? And even Matt Rhule didn't want to fully commit to kind of what we'll see from Casey Thompson this spring.
Oh, I mean, he kind of did. He just said we're not going to see much. Yeah. He said he may be able to throw at some point, but he basically said don't look for him to practice in any meaningful way. So I thought he kind of closed the door on it a little bit.
Like, I don't expect him to play in the red-white game or anything at this point. I think if he could just get out there and get some throws in, that's probably best case
mental
scenario.
reps.
Yeah, I mean, just given this latest update. Now, Rhule also qualifies, I don't know what he's doing on his own. So, like, he's limited with whatever he's doing with us. But, Casey's a resourceful guy. I'm sure he's finding
that's
ways
an interesting. Yeah, Rob, you picked that out, and I did too. It was interesting that he said that. Rhule just dropped in that lineup. I don't know what he's doing away from the facility. Two things struck me on that. I think the head coach maybe should know that. If he really doesn't. Now, the other part of that is Casey's 24 years old, and there's probably a pretty high degree of trust that Casey knows what he's doing. I still think the head coach should kind of know what's going on there,
especially with the guy that potentially could be your starting quarterback.
Absolutely,
you'd think that you'd want to keep tabs on that and what he's doing off the field.
Yeah, and my guess is he does know, actually, or has a pretty good handle on it. Sean's a big Sims guy, so we'll see where that all goes.
Did this update change anything with you? I know this the Thompson Sims debate.
No, I've always been of the mind, guys, that Casey's not going to be able to win a job in the spring, obviously. Now,
but the fact that he's hardly going to be able to do anything, I mean, how far does that set him back?
So what happens now is June becomes very big, and July, mostly June. June becomes a critical month for Casey because you can make up some ground. It's organized. It's not just, hey, guys,
you're running 7-on-7.
Yeah, we're going to go out and run some verticals today, and nobody's keeping track. No, it's
charted.
Yeah, it's charted, and it's pretty organized. And I think, from talking to Charles, that's Casey's kind of banking on starting to make his push in June.
You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Was that also interesting to hear him talk about Chubba Purdy?
Yeah.
Heinrich Harburg. Did he mention Logan too?
No, he hasn't.
Okay, yet. I was going to say, I don't remember Logan.
No, he didn't mention
But
Logan,
he talked about the speed of Harburg and Purdy as two of the fastest mile-per-hour guys on the team.
I did not know that about
surprising.
Chubba.
Well, Chubba ran. Okay, when I interviewed Chubba back in those early recruiting interviews, he ran in the 4.5s in high school. He was fast.
That's fast.
He's explosive.
Mhm.
His body, his foot, and he's had some injuries between his time at Florida State, collarbone injury, and then obviously last year in Nebraska.
Well, the thing that Chubba will emphasize is that coming out of high school, he was a dual threat quarterback. I mean, he was regarded as a runner. So he has that part. We all know Heinrich is a fabulous athlete. I mean, he's one of the better looking athletes over there. But still did surprise me when Rhule said those were two of the fastest guys in terms of mile per hour.
Well, Gabe Irvin's one of them
that they have. Yeah, Irvin.
Tommy Hill's one of them.
Yep.
I want to ask you guys, and Sean, I'll start with you. This was brought up on the chat this week, where with all this rave about Harburg's athleticism and his size, people keep wanting to know, is there a chance would he change positions? What do you think?
I think that conversation, if it comes, would have to come after the spring. I think they probably want to see what they have with him.
Yeah.
Because you could be down to, the transfer portal could hit you quickly at that position, and then all of a sudden he's your third guy.
Yeah, good point.
Like, what's
So
Logan?
what are you looking at?
Jarrett Sinek was getting snaps at Michigan,
and now he left. Sinek's gone.
I mean,
that's amazing. So if you're looking at Heinrich in another position, are we talking about tight end?
Tight end.
Yeah.
Is that something you think he'd be receptive to? Or is he going to be like, no, I'm going to go play quarterback somewhere else?
He's got a lot of good mechanics the way he throws the ball, but what kind of opportunities is he going to get at quarterback?
Yeah, he's got to, I think that operating in an offense that's pretty complex is more challenging for some guys than others.
Would North Dakota State, like, they like quarterbacks like that? Would they look at a guy like that to transfer there? I mean, there's places like that you wonder. South Dakota State.
Don't know.
But he's invested so much in being a quarterback. I mean, he's got really good mechanics and the way he throws the ball. And so there's a lot there to Heinrich Harburg.
I think so. I mean, those guys after Sims and Casey, or Casey and Sims, they need to step up. I mean, Chubba needs to grow as a quarterback quickly. Torres needs to grow. I mean, you got to have a reliable three because of what you're saying. Heinrich too. Those are your guys.
Yeah, I think that is kind of a question. I don't know if it's necessarily a spring question as much as a fall question, but who is the number three?
Yeah, it's always a question. Yeah.
I mean, we know who the top two are. Who's the third?
Yeah,
and that's a question that could change probably every single day. I want to hit on this too, guys. NFL Combine. Nebraska had 3 guys there this weekend. Trey Palmer ran the 4th fastest overall 40, fastest wide receiver time, 4.33 at the NFL Combine. Travis Vokalek did not run a 40, but he benched and he did a broad jump, right, Robin? Was it 9.10 broad?
Yeah, it was 9 something. I don't remember the exact inch, but it was
9.10.
Well over 9.
And then you obviously had O'Shawn Mathis, who you had a pretty serviceable workout. I don't think it was like a workout that blew off the page, but it was still a
good,
pretty strong workout.
Yeah, it was okay. No lineman there. I mean, that's the thing that I would keep harping on. No offensive lineman, no defensive lineman. Nebraska's got to get to where they're sending offensive linemen and defensive linemen to the combine, or you're still going to be 4-8 for an indefinite period of time. But yeah, I think all those guys did well. And Trey, I wonder how much that it doesn't hurt his stock to run 4.33. You just wonder how much it bolsters it. Most of those, as Evan Cooper told us, Sean, coaches go there knowing what those guys are. I don't think that Palmer surprised anybody by popping that.
In fact, it would have been a surprise if he didn't run the 4.3.
Right.
There were some draft analysts that, like, just going into this process, viewed him as a guy that couldn't take the top off of a defense. And I'm like, first of all, what did you watch? If you're looking at any film from Trey Palmer,
the Michigan game.
So if nothing else, Illinois, maybe those types of games where he couldn't get off the line. But I mean, that at least settled that.
Yeah,
and if you're hitting 4.33, that's not a question anymore.
I just think he's a second, third, or fourth rounder. That's the question.
Third rounder, probably. Did you guys see Jack Campbell from Iowa's combine? Yeah. So he measured 6'5", 250, 249, ran a 4.65 as an inside linebacker.
Pretty good.
Had a 37.5-inch vertical, a 10.8 broad, and a 4.24 shuttle.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he'll work.
Yeah, I mean, Could he go first round, Robin, or you think he's early second round guy?
I'd probably say early second.
I haven't seen him in the first round, Sean.
But he's like
no projection.
He's like round. In the 40s, probably like somewhere in the pick 32 to 45 range. I mean,
he's a day 2 pick for sure.
The guy who stole the show was Anthony Richardson, the Florida quarterback, who, by the way, completed 53.8% of his passes this year. And some people are betting on him to maybe be the number 1 overall pick. Now, there's a case where you'd say, yeah, he helped himself at the combine. He's I think 6'4", 6'5", 244 plus pounds and jumped 40.5 inches. His athleticism is incredible. It wasn't like he put up great numbers at Florida. So I think it's a weird discussion, but now people regularly, analysts, put him in the top 5 quarterbacks. I mean, Joel Klatt, I was hurt. Keyshawn Johnson this morning. They roll out their top 5 quarterbacks in this class, and now Anthony Richardson is in every top 5.
Like, it's amazing Levis gets the love that he gets.
Just big arm,
but
big body, big arm.
I mean, he couldn't beat out Sean Clifford.
Did pretty well at Kentucky.
I know. I'm just saying he gets the Josh Allen kind of treatment.
Oh yeah, yes. He's kind of seen that in that.
It goes in fact. I mean, who was that? Richard Sherman, the big corner. Mm-hmm. That was the year Stanley Jean-Baptiste was coming out, and he got like this Richard Sherman bump in the draft, and he really never made the NFL.
Levis might be getting a little bit of that, but he has a legitimately big arm. He does.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk basketball. Robin's on his way to Chicago, so we're not going to get into talking about the tournament because it's day by day here. But we're going to recap the season, talk all Big Ten teams, and give some postseason outlook thoughts next. You're listening here to the HuskerOnline Show. And we're back here on the HuskerOnline Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. The regular basketball season has come to a close. Nebraska got one of their best wins of the year on the road at Iowa, completing the basketball sweep, gentlemen, of the Hawkeyes.
Rivalry.
Doesn't that feel good?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
First win in Iowa City since 2012.
Were you at that game?
I was at that game.
God, you're getting old, Rob.
Tell me about it.
Rob, you're getting up there.
I'm well aware of this.
You're the old guy on the beat.
Thank you. Yes,
held up really well.
I'm the grizzled veteran of the
you
Nebraska
don't look
basketball.
grizzled.
I'm getting more grizzled by the day. I'll tell you that much.
2012, you were there covering it?
Yeah, I've been covering this thing since 2008 for Sean.
You're both getting up.
I was in the Devaney. And that doesn't even count the DN days when I was there covering Barry Collier.
Our friend Gabe DeArmond at Power Mizzou, he always jokes. He's like, now I'm kind of viewed at like my dad, he's his dad. And then like the guy from the Columbia papers, like the guy named Va that used to cover the St. Louis paper for him. And he's like, we're like the old guys now. That's how we feel too. Around.
So it's been a grind, but it's been fun.
Okay, so they get the win in Iowa, which I know you were surprised because you picked Iowa.
Yes, I picked them to win.
You picked them to cover
convincingly.
I think you picked them to win by 14.
14, I think.
You are the curse.
You picked them to win by 14?
It's not true. I picked Nebraska to beat Wisconsin. They beat Wisconsin.
So Nebraska won 6 of its last 8.
6 of last 8.
In the regular season, which does what for Fred Hoiberg and the program?
Well, for Fred, I think that the conversation of any questions about his job security as far as this offseason, that book's closed. Now, it might be revisited if they completely fall off again next year. We'll see. I don't see that happening. But at least we got some clarity on that discussion to where, like, people wonder if Trev needs to put out a statement or anything. No,
nope.
To put out a statement. This basically answered itself with the way that they've been playing. And then, I think that this is the first sustained success Nebraska basketball has had in Big Ten conference play in a long time. And you got a lot of young guys that were part of that and benefited from that with their experience. And now they've tasted it, whereas before you'd get a win here or there. But now these guys know what it feels like to go on a run in the Big Ten and to have momentum going into the Big Ten tournament. So I think there's a lot of value in that, especially looking ahead to next season. Jamarcus Lawrence has played some winning basketball. Wilhelm Breidenbach, CJ Wilcher, maybe Keisei Tominaga if he comes back. So
Blaze Keita,
yeah.
Who else?
Who hasn't been playing much? But
Denham
Dawson, yeah. Sam Hoiberg.
Sam Hoiberg. Yeah, can't forget Sam Hoiberg.
So that I think is when you kind of take away from this run. Obviously, it's turned this season around and kind of put that carrot of potential postseason berth right there for the taking. But I think big picture, the benefit of this stretch for those younger players has been invaluable. And if, like I said, we're taping this on Tuesday, so we'll see what they do in Chicago and beyond. But they're going to get some postseason taste now, and then that experience is something they can build upon going into next year. To where we talk about with football, having that core group that you supplement through the portal is the absolute way you want to do it, as opposed to going clean slate, all porter every single offseason.
Now, Robin, you're one of 2 Nebraska media voters for the All Big Ten team. I believe Kent Pavelka is the other one, and those aren't easy to do. I've done football before. I know Sipple's done football before, and those teams are hard because there's a lot of close calls. And to kind of clarify, you get to select 10 people, right?
Right. So you select 10 players in order, and I think where they're selected, they get more points based off of that. So 10 for the first team, 10 for the second team. And so like when they release it, there are 3 teams. There's a first, second, third. You only vote for 2. And then based on where they're picked with the points, it all kind of averages out. Yeah. So, and then you get 1 vote for player of the year, freshman of the year, coach of the year.
Did your ballot hold out? I mean, any big
transparencies? Like I said, there's 6 guys on the first team. So like,
the media, just go by the media.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. So, so like the 5 guys I picked all made it. I didn't have Boo Buie on the first team or Hunter Dickinson. I had Jameer Young first team. He ended up second. So, there was some differences, but there was a lot of obvious ones.
Did you have Walker on the second?
Yep, I had Walker second. So I had him 4th overall on the second team. So I guess 14th overall.
When you could only pick 10 players, Tominaga, it's hard to, people, a lot of talk about Keisei Tominaga not making these teams, but when you can only do 10, it's really hard to justify him from wire to wire as one of the 10 best guys.
Right? He didn't do anything the first half of the season. He was just a bench guy playing spot minutes with a couple of, here and there double-digit scoring performances. So you kind of got to separate what he did during this late season turnaround versus the whole overall body of work. That a lot of these other guys that made the team were far more consistent from start to finish. So, it's he got honorable mention from both coaches and media. I guess maybe you could make the case, but you look at the guys that are on that second and third team, who do you take off? Every one of those guys earned their spots.
So I got to ask you, I might as well ask you because you're going to be getting asked this a lot. How soon will we know about Tominaga?
Yeah.
You're going to be asked that a lot.
Yeah. So the conversations, I would assume, usually what happens is once the season comes to a close, and so we don't know when that's going to be. If they end up making the NIT, then it's going to prolong it even further. But after the season is officially over and done, a lot of times they take a week and have guys just kind of do their thing. Everybody regroups, and then they come back and start doing individual coach-player one-on-one meetings. And so that, I think, is going to be when Hoiberg and the assistant coaches and other people involved with Nebraska's athletic department, NIL collectives, all kind of put together the reasons why he should come back. And then they're going to match that up with the reasons why he should move on and take a pro career in Japan. So that all will happen, like I said, within the next maybe 2, maybe 3 weeks after the end of the season. They're going to have some long conversations. I'm sure that both parties are already starting to figure things out now, but the real tangible discussions aren't going to happen until at least a week or 2 after the season.
Robin, will Sam Hoiberg go on scholarship?
It depends. If they have an open spot, yeah, but he's a guy that they have the luxury of. He doesn't necessarily need to be on scholarship, but
obviously,
but he's certainly earned it. With the minute, he's like one of their first guys off the bench right now, and he's giving them really productive minutes, making big plays to help them win games. So I don't think anybody would argue it, but if you have the opportunity to give those scholarships to other players while still retaining Sam Hoiberg as a walk-on, that's the ideal situation.
And let's talk big picture. I don't want to get NCAA tournament discussion, but in order to host an NIT home game, because I think we both agree they're going to be in the NIT, do you think they got to win 1 or 2 to get a host?
Well, going into the tournament, they're already projected to host right now, and a lot of that has to do with what's happened in these other conference tournaments.
Projection of beating Minnesota.
So I think if you beat Minnesota, you're in for sure. That ends the NIT conversation. Then beyond that is the debate of whether or not they host. So you beat Minnesota, I think you're in a very good spot to host, especially given where they are going into the tournament. You add another win on top of that. There is the NCAA doesn't like to say it, but the money is a factor when it comes to seeding. Obviously, they want to make it look like it's all based off record, but when you have a Nebraska sitting there with that resume, plus you're guaranteed to get 10,000 plus, and it's going to make great TV. It's going to sell a bunch of tickets, and it's going to be a really attractive home matchup for that first round. There's a lot of value there. So I think that will work in Nebraska's favor to some degree, as long as they take care of business against Minnesota and can keep themselves in that situation.
I mean, they just get killed in the net ranking, though. Like, no matter what, it's like they go when they win a game, they like go down in the net, which is
because they keep winning close, and that's not offsetting the blowout losses that they had earlier in the year. I mean, they had multiple double-digit losses this season that have really crippled them, especially earlier in the year. So, yes, they've really turned it on, and I don't agree that those like metrics from November should be equally weighted as what you're doing in February and March. But that's just me. But that's kind of how the formula is written out. So the good news is when it comes to NCAA tournament seeding, the net is just a guideline. Like when it comes to the committee picking teams, they're going to lean far more heavily on the KPI, which Nebraska is in the 60s right now, and strength of record, which Nebraska is also in the 60s. So they are significantly higher in metrics that the committee is going to look at far more than what the net is
ask
showing.
yourself this too: how many teams in the Big Ten, Robin, could go 6-2 over that stretch Nebraska played? And there are a lot. I mean, that's not easy to do in this league. I mean, there'd be a lot of 5-3s and 4-4s, but 6-2 is about as good as you're going to see anybody in the Big Ten do over an 8-game stretch.
When they won those 4 in a row, that at the time was the longest winning streak in the conference. So I mean, just winning 4 in a row is rare. I mean, look at Purdue.
Look at the final conference standings.
That's what I'm saying.
Like 12 wins got you second place, right?
No team just ran the table, and so that's what makes Purdue's case for Matt Painter being coach of the year. He didn't. Chris Collins got it from Northwestern, but Painter was the one guy that, they finished a 3-game lead in that conference with that type of parity. So
did you vote for Painter?
I voted for Collins.
Oh, you did.
And,
they drilled Nebraska. When they came in here.
And a lot of that had to do with where they were projected. I mean, they far surpassed anything that they were supposed to do, whereas Purdue did what it was supposed to do.
Most disappointing team in the league is Michigan.
Ooh.
Rutgers. How about Rutgers?
Rutgers is really falling off. The thing is, they're still probably going to make the tournament.
Why'd you have to go Rutgers?
Yeah, Rutgers is in that conversation. I don't want to say Wisconsin.
Will Michigan make the tournament?
Why don't you want to say Wisconsin?
Right now, no.
Why don't you want to say Wisconsin playing on the first day of the Big Ten tournament?
Yeah.
Or would you say Ohio State is the most disappointing?
Yeah. That's the one.
Ohio
State.
Yeah.
That's the one. Yes. Because of where they were. I mean, they were top 25 team at one point, and then they just completely fell off. Now, they had injuries, but so did Nebraska. Nebraska found a way to do it. Whereas, Ohio State's playing better lately, but man, they were going through it for a while there. So yes, as far as like where they were projected to be, where they started the season, and how much they fell off, the answer is Ohio State.
Ohio State.
All right, when we come back, Abby Barmore will join the show. We'll take your questions in the mailbag. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Zippel, Robin Washut. Let's bring in Abby Barmore to the discussion. She's in between Husker baseball games right now. Appreciate you stepping in, Abby. And what do you have to lead the mailbag off?
Outside of Fedoni, Borders, and Prohaska, have you heard of any other high performers this winter?
Yeah, Buccini, obviously. Rhule was he said Buccini's the toughest special teams player, or one of the toughest special teams players ever had.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Buccini, ladies and gentlemen. We've heard Evan Cooper say that he coaches Quentin Newsom like he's an NFL player already. And he said of Malcolm Hartzog, he's the type of guy you win with. He's Hartzog. I mean, that's not all he said about Hartzog. He was effusive, Evan Cooper, in his praise of Malcolm Hartzog. Those are guys you hear about.
I know it's early, but Xavier Betts, the praise out of him is
off
strong.
The record praise?
Off the record, yeah. I mean, nobody asked about him publicly, but
right.
I know he's up to 206, and I know he's added 18 pounds since coming back. And we saw an early picture of him before he kind of came back, and he did look skinny. Remember how and he's kind of got back. And, like Bill Moose made that joke. He goes, when you're a high level athlete, you can't put bad fuel in a sports car. And I think now Betts is back on track. I'll be really curious what his spring looks like.
Yeah.
How about Omar Brown, just firefighter carrying Teddy Prohaska during those drills? You see that video Rhule put out?
See that.
That's a deal where like they carry each other, and so Teddy's
he's got a bad back.
Teddy's
Omar
carrying Brown, and then they flip, and big old Teddy Prohaska gets on Omar Brown's back, and he just carries him, just mans up.
When Omar Brown,
330-pound dude.
I believe his injuries last year
his back injury.
were back injuries. Okay,
I'm startled. I'm startled by this conversation.
Clearly, his back is doing well. At least it was.
Yeah.
Until Tuesday.
What do you got next, Abby?
Before ever seeing a practice or a game under the new staff, what do you think the fans will notice different right away?
Say that again, please.
Before seeing a practice or a game under the new staff, what do you think that the fans are going to notice that is different right away?
Hey,
More tight ends and fullbacks.
Huddles.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sean. Mm-hmm. Huddles. They are going to huddle.
No more of this. Like that's the quarterback clapping and then looking up at the box, looking back. Yeah. They want the quarterback to be able to communicate with a cadence and do the other things under center.
Yeah, you're going to communicate. Now I'm going to call a play in the huddle.
And with the game of football eliminating like the clock stoppages on the incomplete passes and first downs, not incomplete passes, but there's going to be less plays in the game. So, I do think this style that they want to do, it will be better. I mean, you
got to be more efficient now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've talked about this before, but Frost at one point said, in the American Athletic Conference, when you're running 80, sometimes even close to 90 plays in a game, you could have some throwaway plays and, just get them next time. In the Big Ten, when you're down to 55 plays sometimes, you can't have throwaway plays. You got to be much more efficient. And maybe being in a huddle, having eye-to-eye communication, slowing it down a little bit, maybe that leads to more efficiency. That's what you hope.
What do you got next, Abby?
What is your take on Nebraska's winter conditioning team competitions?
It's fun. I mean, I think you got to create ways to engage players to want to compete and have fun during a time that's really not fun. It's cold out. It's dark out. You're sore. You're sweaty.
Yeah, you're up early.
The girls aren't watching you. The fans aren't watching. I mean, it's just you. And I think that's what's kind of cool about this. They've created a way to build a culture internally where these guys are competing and having fun doing it when it's really not fun.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Like listening to Matt Rhule talk about Thomas Fedoni having to get on a group chat and getting 10 guys organized, 11 guys organized to go to a beach volleyball match. Mm-hmm. And that's not easy to do. It's not easy for Sean to get us organized to do this. It's not. And so you got to get 11 people organized to go at a set time to do something. That takes leadership.
Well,
Fedoni embraced that.
Yeah, the fact that they picked the leaders too. Like these weren't like volunteers. Yeah, I mean, so they said, Thomas, you're going to be a captain, and like put him in that situation where maybe he doesn't step into that leadership role without getting that sort of responsibility put on him. One more note on that Omar Brown thing. I just saw that. So he carried Teddy Prohaska for 106.6 yards.
That is incredible.
I know.
That's
on a bad back.
It's a strong man now.
That's absolutely true.
He could be a surprise guy, Omar Brown.
195 pounds.
He was an All-American. He was an All-American at Northern Iowa, and it was the injury situation that kind of kept him limited last year.
Mm-hmm. Safety. I mean, he's a safety. He's at a pretty strong position, right? I mean, you got Miles Farmer back. You got Buford back. Isaac Gifford can play back there. You brought in the kid from Corey Collier from Florida. Who am I missing, Sean?
Two things, though.
Who am I missing?
I mean, Singleton.
Yeah.
Singleton.
Gifford.
Yeah, I mentioned Gifford. But, yeah, they got guys there. That's the thing. Omar Brown.
Jaleel Martin, Kobe Bretz.
Yeah.
Buford, though, coming off knee injury. And Farmer, yes, has played, but in terms of this miles per hour metric, he's not fast. He's limited. He is limited with speed.
I'll tell you where he's not limited in the box. He's not limited in the box.
So,
Sip, look at your screen. That's
oh, yeah, I got it.
Watch it.
Okay, I want to see this.
Look at him just pick up
Prohaska.
Okay, that's amazing. That is amazing.
It's like you carrying HuskerOnline on your back. So
that's right.
Every day.
every day.
Every day sip going to work.
Look at that. Look at that, man.
Look at that
That's amazing.
Oh, it's multiple.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
beast.
That is,
Yeah, 106.6 yards
it's really impressive.
total that he carried a 320-pound dude on his back.
Yeah, that's impressive.
All right, what do you got next,
Love it.
Abby?
We've had a few questions about this. So for winter conditioning, what do the black jerseys mean? And what are all the colors mean?
Elite is the black color. So if you're in that black jersey, you're in the elite group, and there are only so many guys that are in the black. And then there's different levels of colors, and they haven't really specified what the gray.
I think red is you're not doing
Red's
well.
not good.
Yeah, red's not good.
Who's in red? That's the next
Yeah,
question.
you don't want to see yourself in red.
I'm guessing the red jerseys don't make the videos very
I
often.
don't think so. We also don't know who Mr. Irrelevant is when they did the point scoring. Somebody who was in last place was a former starter. Matt Rhule called him out without calling him out.
Yeah,
So
Former or could, I mean, we don't
he said
know.
he was a starter.
he was a
last
starter last year. Hello.
And I don't want to speculate.
No,
No,
geez.
so we don't know. We're not
No.
going to speculate, but that's I think another value is they're rewarding guys that are stepping up, but they're also
calling
guys out that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. I think there's just as much value in that.
I agree.
Next
100%.
question.
Does Nebraska ball take a big step back next season since they lose Greasel, Walker, Bandamel, and potentially Keisei Tominaga?
It's a lot to replace. There's no doubt about it. They're going to have to do some work on the portal. We're going to have to get some immediate impact guys, point guard, scoring wing, maybe scoring guard if Keisei leaves, and obviously more post depth, maybe some more offensive options in the low post with losing Derek Walker. But they're also bringing back a pretty good core. I mean, Jamarcus Lawrence, I think, is going to be a dude you can build
He
around.
can't play point guard.
He can play point guard like Emmanuel Bandamel played point guard, where like he can do it. It's not his primary position, but he can do it.
Okay.
Then obviously you get, we'll see who all comes back, but I think you got some core pieces with him. You got some, guys like Wilhelm, maybe CJ, Dunn Dawson, Sam Hoiberg, who we talked about, Blaise Keita. So, I mean, you've got a foundation that with the experience they gained, like we talked about over the end of this year, you supplement that with some impact transfers. I don't see a significant step back, especially with the culture that they built from the end of last season to now.
I think Jamarcus Lawrence could be a guy that comes back and averages 15 a game.
Yeah, he could be their top guy.
That combination he has of extreme speed, which he has extreme speed, wouldn't you say, with the ball?
He's pretty fast.
And beautiful touch. I mean, he's got a beautiful shot.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he was known as in high school, as a shooter.
Oh, he's a beautiful shooter.
But I mean, he's finishing at the rim, and
so you don't think he's as fast? I think he's fast with the ball.
Extreme. I'm thinking like Tyson Walker at Michigan State. Like,
I'm not saying he's De'Aaron Fox, but he's fast. He's fast. Yeah,
he's fast.
All right.
Great athlete.
Plays downhill.
Oh, he does play downhill.
Final question, Abby Barmore.
If you need a coffee, what drive-thru are you going to, and what's your order?
Right here, Abby.
Show the camera.
Hold it up to the camera.
I'll tell you, like
McDonald's.
I mean, Rob and I are on the same page in this. We like to make espressos at home, but
you make more money than I do.
I have a coffee maker at my house. But I will say, like the Starbucks, and Robin, you introduced me to this. The Starbucks mobile ordering, is life changing.
Oh, is it now?
Because
you don't have to interact with anybody.
You don't have to interact.
Show up and get your coffee.
And and you don't wait in line. And like the South Lincoln Pine Lake Starbucks, I know at one time was like the busiest one in the state.
And
what
are you getting at here?
And the line would be just ridiculous if you wanted to call. Now you just put it in your phone, drive there in 5 or 10 minutes, and your drink's just sitting there. And you leave and go.
Wow.
Yep.
And the mistake I've made is I got my wife. She drinks a drink there, and she never did for like 15 years of being with my wife.
Not coffee though.
It's a refresher, like a strawberry fruit drink. Yeah. And she does the mobile order on there, and it's like,
every day,
just about
every day. How much is that a day?
$5.
That's not so bad. You can handle that.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, here's the thing about McDonald's. This is $152.
Apparently, on the chat, someone says that you're doing it wrong. Speaking of mobile apps, the McDonald's mobile app will get you $1 coffee.
Really?
So you're spending an extra like 70 cents.
But they ask you for your number and everything, and it seems like a kind of a
like every app.
I see people doing it all the time. It takes a lot of time.
Abby will get you set up.
Okay.
I mean, you get good coffee, like the mill down here.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll hand make your shots for you with a real press.
When I have time, I'll go into a place like the mill or something like that. But on the drive-through, usually Starbucks.
Abby, what
for
about
asking.
you? What's your coffee?
I actually don't really like Starbucks, but I love Dunkin'. Dunkin's my go-to for sure.
Is that right? You're not a
Mhm.
Starbucks fan.
Yeah, I just don't like the way that their
I'm
coffee
with you.
tastes.
Yeah, I'm not. I
I
don't
think
like
it tastes kind of burnt.
God, that's a good take, Abby. It does taste a little
What-
burnt.
It's a take. I don't
Hot
agree
take.
with it. It's a take.
It does taste a little burnt.
When you go to Dunkin' Donuts, though, if you don't tell them, like, won't they just make your coffee like with the sugars and the cream in it automatically? Isn't there like a standard like Dunkin' way they call
I don't
it?
know that, Abby.
'Cause if-
I don't know that either. I don't just get like plain coffee from them. So
It freaked me out. I ordered like a black coffee or something. And it was like loaded up with stuff. I'm like, whoa! Like, I mean, there's like they like pride themselves in putting all this stuff in when they give it to you.
No focus.
I'll tell you one interesting coffee thing I had real quick. Krispy Kreme. I went through Krispy Kreme and asked for an Americano. They said we don't do Americanos.
What?
At Krispy Kreme, they don't do Americanos. But she said I can try to make one. I said, yeah, do it. Oh my God, it was bad. I don't know what she put
It's
in
just
there.
espresso and water.
Yeah,
Like,
well, she
how
messed
do you
it up.
screw that up?
Yeah, it was
You
incredible.
run into that at McDonald's too. Some McDonald's will make an Americano, and some
Yeah,
they
some look at you like you're
not in America.
right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Americano is a standard European coffee.
Okay.
I mean, it's espresso and hot water.
Yeah.
But anyway, great coffee discussion. When we
Coffee
come
talk.
back, we will close the show. We're talking some Iowa Hawkeyes. They're in the headlines for
Oh,
the wrong
boy.
reasons. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Final segment here of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, and we will be back next week. We're going to do a special spring football preview show with Sip and I and Abby. Robin will still be at Big Ten, but we are going to tape a show as well for next week, previewing spring football. But lots going on in the Big Ten. Ohio State opened spring practice this week. Michigan's like in week 3 of spring ball already. But the big story in the league right now is Iowa, Sip, and there's a lot of turmoil going on that involves the athletic director now of Iowa, Gary Barta, where you've got state lawmakers in the state of Iowa, demanding that he either resigns or is fired on this latest development.
Yeah, what the story is, and this is I'm reading straight from the Gazette of Cedar Rapids. The state appeal board on Monday okayed paying $4.2 million to settle a racial discrimination lawsuit from 2 years ago, brought by former Hawkeye football players against the school. And this is despite opposition from the state auditor and from Kirk Ferentz and Iowa's coaching staff. Now, so yeah, things are kind of tense in Iowa because of that $4.2 million settlement. $2 million of that totals to come from the state's general fund, meaning taxpayer money. So you can imagine the reaction it's getting. Kirk Ferentz is, certainly Gary Bard is under fire, the AD. So is Kirk, though. It's another thing where Kirk's going to have to dig in his heels, which he is. Ferentz is digging in his heels. And it's interesting following this without getting into it too much. What really hits you during these sorts of stories and these sorts of circumstances is how the level of sophistication that head coaches need at this level. If you read Kirk Ferentz, he understands the legal system at a high level. He understands his situation as it applies to this. And it does require a level of complexity and sophistication that a lot of coaches couldn't handle. Kirk Ferentz handles it well. My guess is Matt Rhule could handle something like this. I think back to COVID when Frost, Sean, you remember, Rob, you remember the level of complexity that Frost was dealing with that had nothing to do with jet sweeps or, cover 2 or anything like that. It's that job at places like Iowa, places like Nebraska, places like Ohio State, the level of complexity is incredible. If 12 players, like happened at Iowa, come forward with allegations of discrimination, you got something on your hands that has nothing to do with beating Nebraska or Minnesota. It's fascinating to watch. And, Ferentz handles it really well. But man, yeah, he's really under fire.
He's
right
dealt
now.
with a year. Think about his son.
Well, with Brian Ferentz. And Brian Ferentz, by the way, is one of the people that were named in this lawsuit. That Ferentz family has had a heck of a hard year.
I know when I was out in Iowa City this last weekend, that was obviously talk about that amongst some of the Iowa
writers.
writers that I was talking to, and they kind of knew that this was headed that way, that they were going to take the settlement, and from what they had heard, Kirk was about as livid as you could expect that Iowa chose to do that without any consultation
of the coaches.
Yeah,
he did not know about it.
Basically, it admits guilt.
Yeah, I think he wanted it to go to trial.
He did, because he was going to fight it all the way.
Yeah, he was
and
going to
so
fight it all
not only both the financial aspects of it, but just the look of basically them saying, yes, we did this and we admit to it. Here, take our money. I think that was something they never wanted. Ferentz never wanted to go down that road, but people above him decided to go ahead with a different route. And so the internal issues within the university and the athletic department, it's a major deal right now.
It won't be
And
a
major deal. Does it become like a fireable cause down the road, like where you don't have to pay somebody all their money?
I don't think so. The coaches involved, which Kirk was involved,
the
obviously.
Strength coach.
Old Chris Doyle, Seth Wallace was a linebackers coach, Brian Ferentz. Those were the guys named. Now, but they were removed days ago. Their names were removed from the lawsuit. So no, I don't.
Well, and Doyle left.
I don't think it can be.
Doyle
punitive.
left right at the beginning. Remember,
well, Doyle left and got $1 million from Iowa, $1.1 million,
because they sabotaged. I mean, his career is kind of over at that point. I don't know what he's doing now.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not talking about guilt or innocence here because I don't know. But there was a settlement reached, and it's causing a firestorm in the state of Iowa.
Yeah,
the kind of headache you don't want if you're a head coach.
And I think Kirk wanted a situation where his son Brian would take over for him, and I think we know that's not going to happen.
Ship has sailed.
And what's next for Iowa? I mean, that's the question. If he retires at any point next year, like. And a new AD comes in now too. Like they're a whole different Iowa.
Yeah, Kirk. I don't see any signs of Kirk retiring. Now, Barda's situation is Gary Barda, the AD. His situation is much more tenuous. His contract is up in 2024. Kirk's is signed. It's a long-term deal. Kirk's got a long-term deal. I think he could coach till he's 73 or 74. His deal doesn't end anytime soon. He seems like the type of guy. I hate to invoke Paterno in this conversation, but the kind of guy to dig in his heels.
But what if Barda's gone and he's already got this tenuous relationship with the university side of it? Like, is that something he wants to continue with?
Kirk's pretty powerful.
Well, what if a new AD comes in that's not going to want to work with him?
Kirk's pretty powerful. He's been there 20 plus years.
Is pretty powerful.
Yeah, he's got some power. He does. I know there'd be a new AD.
But if they start losing,
a new AD come in and remove Kirk Ferentz. Yeah, if they start losing, there would be a window of opportunity. And they might. They're not exactly loaded up right now.
You know what's going to change Iowa is when the divisions go away.
Yeah. Well, it'll change everybody.
It's going to change everybody. Yeah. But Iowa, really benefited off the West. And then they always got the Indiana, Rutgers, Maryland draw.
Easy on that, Sean.
No, they didn't play Ohio State for like 10 years. It was ridiculous. This was their first game in Columbus since like 2014 or something.
They played Penn State though regularly.
Yeah, that was kind of the one they got. But they never had to play Ohio State. And Nebraska played Ohio State for 6 straight years.
That got in your craw, didn't it?
Well, because it got guys fired. The Ohio State
you're right.
You fired. You get your doors blown off.
Yeah,
it screws up your whole season.
Oh yeah, we saw it here.
We saw it happen to
Riley.
That's
fair, Sean. That's fair. We saw it with how many different coaches? 2,
Riley,
for sure.
Frost,
been Bo.
Bo with Urban Meyer.
Yeah,
at the beginning.
Yeah, doors blown off. You're right. Doors blown off by Ohio State. Sometimes it's hard to recover.
But then the critic can say, "Well, you're Nebraska. You should be able to play that game."
Absolutely.
That's what
I think that goes with it.
Yeah.
Those are often nationally televised games where if you're a program like Nebraska and you consider yourself a team that should be competing for championships and you're losing by 45 at home, that's hard to overcome as a head coach.
Just wrapping it up, I'll tell you what, the only way you can say it at Iowa right now is it's unhealthy. It's not a healthy situation. It's not.
A lot of interesting dynamics going on across the board there.
All right. Well, lots to follow. Robin will obviously have full coverage of the basketball weekend. So make sure you're on HuskerOnline.com, as hopefully it's a long stay in Chicago for Robin. And then Abby and the crew will have lots of baseball coverage as well. Nebraska baseball is on, like, they're going to play like dang near 15 home games out of like 16 or some crazy number. So there'll be plenty of home baseball. Unfortunately, the weather's going to be in the 40s just about every day in March, but hopefully you can get over to Haymarket Park and catch Will Bolt's crew. Had a great weekend in Minneapolis, highlighted by a 5-3 win over Vanderbilt. If you're not a subscriber to Husker Online, check us out. $29.99 get you access until August 31st. Also, follow us on YouTube, and download or subscribe to our podcast anywhere you can find podcasts.